Excited to get started today. 2014 University of Florida football team starting training camp. Start practice tomorrow. We'll go split squad the first 2 days, generally having half of the team practice early in the morning. We're still in school. We'll be busing to the field, to the lacrosse fields there at 5:40 in the morning. And then most of the younger guys will go tomorrow night and have some meetings through the day to make sure we're ready to roll. We'll have graduation obviously Saturday. So we'll go split squad the first 2 days, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Entire squad will practice at night. But continuing to build the foundation of our football team as we hit training camp. It starts in the off season, which I was very pleased with how we did in the off season. It goes into spring ball. Very pleased with what we got accomplished in spring ball, and then really pleased with how our summer went. To see our guys coming back. I love the new NCAA rule to be able to be on the field with our guys, see our guys work. We're much further along than we've ever been anywhere I've ever been because of the new rule, and that's a credit to the NCAA as far as that. But now you hit training camp. It's about our preparation, how we prepare in the meeting room, on the field, all of those things, and approaching it every day and preparing the right way. And again, I just met with our team and talked to them as far as those things are concerned. Having a great attitude every day, coming out and knowing you got to improve yourself. You either get better or worse every day. Embracing adversity. We'll have adversity this year. When it'll happen, I don't know. We'll be in training camp. We'll be during the season at some point, but it's going to happen, and we've got to handle and embrace that. With that being said, embrace your competitive edge as a player. And that helps our football team. And those are things to me that we're really emphasizing on heading into camp, making sure that we develop those things. Really talk to our team about turnover margin. In my 3 years at Florida, we've been 19-3 when we won or tied the turnover margin. We've been 3-13 when we've lost the turnover margin. So that's a team stat. It's not just about offense taking care of the ball, defensively getting the ball off people. We haven't been explosive enough offensively to overcome turnovers, and I think we will be this year. Certainly not saying it's okay to turn the ball over, but we got to take care of the ball. That's the number one thing as far as our team goals are concerned. Discipline and playing smart situational football. We break up all practices and different things we're trying to emphasize for our guys to understand those things and penalties involved with that and playing with discipline, but to continue to develop a blue-collar, overachieving attitude within our program. We've got good enough players. We continue to do those things, we'll be fine. As far as our roster is concerned, we need to find a backup quarterback. That's someone that will play in the first ball game at some point, but that's going to be important for us to develop at that position. I think we have great competition at running back, linebacker, and receiver. Some talented guys, and those guys, as far as the competition concerns, my best motivator. Continue to develop depth on both offense and defensive lines. I think the talent is there. Some guys haven't played as much, but I'm very pleased with what I see as far as our talent levels are concerned. Sort out the secondary. Again, the talent's there. Some guys maybe not have played a lot, but I've played a lot of freshman DBs that have played extremely well in their first year, and our specialists need to continue to improve from spring, which I felt like we made some strides in both punting the ball, kicking field goals, and kickoffs, and those sort of things. So those are the things going into camp we need to address. As a staff, we know that as far as just our total roster is concerned. As far as injuries, we're healthy. J.C. Jackson will start camp. He will be non-contact. I would say 7 to 10 days, but that's, he's far ahead of where we thought he would be at this time. I'm going to guess 7 to 10 days, and he should be cleared for contact. Matt Rowland has been completely cleared, but we will limit him a little bit. He and Andre as well. Andre's been cleared for everything, but, always in those situations, you want to make sure those guys are fully ready to go, and I'll open it up for any questions.
Will, can you talk about the receivers and there's been a lot of talk. Florida hadn't had a great receiver in a while, and you think this is the year you see some guys break out?
Well, as far as the receiver position, two seniors jump out you. Quentin Dunbar, again, I've been pretty well documented that I think he's one of the most improved players in our program over the years. Andre DeBose missed his playmaking ability last year, and the guy's the leading kickoff returner in UF history. But a guy that I think offensively would probably fit him a little better. He'll play on the outside. He's also going to play in the slot some, utilize him with some of the speed sweeps and things. LaTroy Pittman has continued to improve. 3 freshmen that played for us last year. DeMarcus Robinson's really matured. I think he had a very good spring. The game has slowed down for him. Those guys, y'all have heard me say it, it's not add water instant player. And sometimes it takes guys a little more time to adapt to the college, speed of the game. Chris Thompson's been a guy that's got really good top-end speed. needs to continue to develop, being a consistent catcher of those sort of things. Alvin Bailey's a young man we redshirted, I thought did some nice things. And Ahmad Fullwood, again, is a year faster, a year stronger. He had a shoulder injury coming into camp last year from high school, so he was not able to lift as much and do some of the things you need to do, have a young player to do. So all of those guys combined with Valdez Showers, who we've moved to play in the slot and compete with LaTroy. But the great thing, Pat, we've got a lot of competition at the position, so it's going to make those guys work harder. And I think they've done a great job with Jeff and our quarterbacks this summer. So I'm excited to see those guys go out and compete. But I certainly feel like we've improved ourselves at that position.
So Robbie on the left and then Edgar.
Well, how much have you been asked about, going 4-8 last year? Are you kind of tired, like, this team ready to move on?
Well, again, I think that's something that we sort of buried to start the summer. It was great motivation through spring and the off-season workouts, but something we still got to deal with. I mean, it's there, and I addressed our team about our preparation, about our attitude, about our embracing adversity, about our having a competitive edge every day. And that's to stick your head in the sand and pretend it was all injuries. That's not right, and that you'll fool yourself if you believe that. So we addressed a lot of those things in the off season and moving forward. So we're getting ready to get started with the 2014 Florida football team.
We got Edgar and then Mike.
Yeah, well, you've had real high praise for this team this offseason, maybe more than any of your previous squads. What's your thinking there? How has this team kind of earned that from you?
Well, just from their work ethic, their buy-in. We always talk in terms of you either renting it or you're owning it, and you take ownership in your team, and I see a lot of that. I think we've improved our offensive roster tremendously at the receiver position, at running back. I think Jeff's going to have a really good year. I feel very good about our first 7 offensive linemen. I think we're talented after that, just guys hadn't played much. But, we talk in terms of Chaz Green and Max Garcia and DJ Humphreys and Trenton Brown, and Trip Thurman's been a guy that's really come on, had a good spring. Tyler Moore, those are all guys that have played well. So I think the key ingredients offensively, we're better than we've been. Defensively, we're not as talented as we were in 2012. But I do think we have the key ingredients. 2 inside tackles up front that are seniors that are capable of playing very well. 2 edge rushers that have played well for us and I think will play consistently well for us this year. A lot of competition at linebacker with some good players that have played well, and a talented secondary. So I think all of the components are there. I think we're talented enough with our specialists to kick the ball well. But we need to go do it now.
You also said – this isn't really working.
That's all right. I can hear you.
Edgar is working. Just talking.
Okay, sorry.
Doesn't sound like it's working. All right.
You also have said
second-guessing people too.
you also have said that you've accomplished more in the spring than you thought, and now even mentioned the summer. How does that kind of impact the fall, and how much do you guys need to get done here?
Edgar, the biggest thing is for young players to be able to meet with the young players extensively and go over things with them schematically and have them hit fall camp having an idea what over front means and what this formation means and what this route concept means, as opposed to being on the field and going through camp and trying to teach it when they're tired. Our guys are still in summer school the first week of practice. I mean, they got a lot going on, and then they're trying to get all of this information. And since in the NCAA rules, we have to be in helmets the first 2 days. So we do a lot of installation in the first 2 days because there's not a lot of contact. And we do a lot of what we call tracking tempo, where we go 11 on 11, and it's full speed, but you can't do some of the drill work you need to do, so we spend a lot of installation in the first 2 days. Well, we've been able to go through that with some of our younger players, so they at least have an idea of that. You've also been able to repeat that cycle with the older players, especially when you're introducing something new.
So Mike and then Zach.
When you look at the 2 teams that played for the SEC championship last year, the turnarounds they had from the previous year, why were they able to do that? Do you use that to tell your team, hey, it can be done? Just your thoughts on the turnaround.
I really just focus on Florida and what we need to do to be successful, and then I talked about turnover margin. That's number 1. Playing smart situational football, that's number 2. Playing with great discipline along with playing smart situational football, and to outwork our opponent. And if we're able to do those things, we got good enough players and a good enough staff, we'll win plenty of games. And we stay healthy at the quarterback position, we're going to win a bunch of games.
Also, Gary Pinkel call you during the offseason?
Yeah, Gary and I talked. I mean, he went through a very difficult time the year before with a lot of things going on, and we're very makeshift on especially the offensive side of the ball through the year, and just, it's one of those things. He's an outstanding football coach, and it's tough sometimes when you got to face those adverse circumstances.
Zach and then Gary.
Well, how much has Leon Orr matured and developed since you've been here, and how big is it that he has a productive year?
He needs to be very productive for us. That was something when we lost Dominic inside last year. We really suffered, you know. So he's a guy that he understands what's at stake for him right now. He missed spring with the wrist injury. I feel like he's come off that pretty well, but he needs to play well, and I think he's ready for the opportunity.
And how big is it for him and also Darius Cummings to bring the young guys along at defensive tackle? And how much are you counting on them for contributions, some of the underclassmen?
But they're going to have to play. I mean, that's the bottom line. You know, John Bullard gives you some flexibility. He can play inside and out, but you know, Janard Bostwick and Joey Ivey, Caleb Brantley. I mean, all of those guys are very, very capable of playing well for us and being a guy that, you know, at the end of the day, you know, give us 18 snaps, give us 15, 18, 20 snaps in a game. If it's a 70-snap game, be able to divide that with 2 other guys and let the bigger guys, you know, play 45, 50 snaps in a game and stay fresh, and especially in the heat early in the year, rushing the passer, playing some up-tempo teams. You know, we're going to have to be very deep in the defensive line. You know, you'd like to be able to play up to 10 to 12 guys. And I think the talent is there. Maybe the experience is not, and that's something we need to get done.
Gary in the back, and then Kevin, and then Larry.
Coach, assuming you stay healthy or a lot healthier, what gets you excited about the offense that's going to be put on the field? What Kurt's done, Jeff being healthy, the offense not getting healthy. What are you looking forward to seeing?
A lot of points.
But as far as changing the system,
Well, I think schematically we'll be drastically different because we're going to be in the shotgun all the time. The tempo will be much different. We're going to be on the ball. You know, we've got different mechanisms to go fast, to look back, to change the play based on the defensive look. So there's a lot of different things built in that we will be much different to the fans sitting in the stands. You know, our run game will be very similar to what we've done before, but it's going to be from the gun, you know. And in the pass game, I think we've really dressed some things down and simplified some things for our players to let our guys play faster. And that's really what we're looking for. And get the ball in space to playmakers and let them make plays. And when you play against us, you're going to have to tackle in space. I mean, that's what these teams create issues for you as a defensive coach. You've got to be able to play in space. You've got to be able to rush 4 guys consistently well, as opposed to being able to pressure all the time because you create so many one-on-ones outside. And when you miss a tackle, it's a big play. So those are things, when you're able to rush 4, you're able to play more zone and have eyes on the ball, especially with a mobile quarterback. So I think we present some issues for a defensive team.
Larry over to the left, and then Gene.
Will, the last couple of years, you guys have really struggled in the first quarter. Have you done anything preparation-wise in changing or evaluating your preparation to be a better first quarter football?
Well, we've looked at, you know, any time from a travel standpoint of whether we're on the road or we're on at home, and we've tweaked and looked at different things, and hopefully we'll get better results as we move forward. I think more than anything, you know, being more talented on the offensive side of the ball is going to help us.
Also, over the first 3 years, what do you feel is the most significant thing you've accomplished as a program on or off?
Well, I think we've accomplished a lot of things as far as, you know, where we are. We had the highest GPA this past spring, a 2.8 cumulative with our scholarship players, you know, since they've early 90s at the University of Florida. That's a great accomplishment. I feel like we've made some strides off the field, but you know, we need to show some results from those positive things on the field. That's what we plan on doing.
Gene, and then Jeff. Go ahead, Gene.
Will, you alluded to earlier about Ahmad Holwood, your letting you receiver. Specifically, what are you looking from him? And do you feel like his body type length will allow you to do maybe some different things with him that you can't do with others?
Well, he's a matchup issue because of his length, but he's gotten stronger. He's gotten much more crisp in his route running and snapping routes off. You know, he catches the ball extremely well. But because of his length, he's a guy, as a defensive coach, when you line up, you're a little, you know, leery of lining up a smaller corner versus him because he does have exceptional ball skills and he catches the ball at the highest point very well. So because of his length, he presents some issues.
Jeff here, and then Scott.
Well, you made a point of the problem last year with a woe is me attitude. Has there been a moment or a time when you felt better about the mental toughness of this team in the offseason?
Well, I think, you know, we had our 110 test. We run 16 110s, and we have a prescribed time at each position they have to make. We had, of our entire roster, scholarship, walk-on, everyone, only 2 players, one of them being a true freshman, not make all of their times from 16 110s. So as far as a buy-in level, that's there. You know, I couldn't say that in our previous 3 years we had that many guys make it, but it is a hard test. And I just see some things from this team from an intangible standpoint that are very positive. Now we need to go do it now with pads on, and when football really starts. And so that's something you just got to continue to build through camp.
Yeah, is that something where obviously now going into camp and then the season itself, you're really going to find out more each step
No
along the way?
question. When you turn the lights on and you go out there in the stadium in front of 90,000 people, that's when you find out.
Is it still a concern to you, like in the back of your mind, this might creep up again?
Well, no, sure, but I go back to when your best players are good guys, good dudes, you're gonna be all right. And our best players right now are great people.
With all the offseason talk, 4-8 and Georgia Southern in players' faces, and how many times they had to sort of deal with that, is this going to be one of the easier teams for you to motivate your pregame or halftime speeches, things like that?
Well, I mean, all the pregame and halftime stuff, that's way overrated. I mean, recruit good players, you know, that helps. So, but we've got a good roster, and our guys are motivated. You know, I told our guys, you can bear it all you want, you better learn to deal with it. That's part of it.
Scott over to the left, and then Richard.
Hey, Will, just to match, what could you guys offensively, because he able to stay healthy?
He's a 230-pound back that, you know, about midway through the third and fourth quarter, you get tired of hitting. But he's got extremely good hands. He's very good in protection. Very smart player. A guy that you know, had a lot. I thought he had as good a spring ago that for a back that I've been around. You know, missed all of training camp last year with the viral infection. But you know, weighs 233 pounds. You know, we had his goal weight, I think, at 228, and I watched him run the 110s at 233, and I told him he could weigh 235 if he wanted to. So he looks really good. He's healthy. He's in shape. He's excited. He's itching to get started.
Richard and then Kevin.
Coach, how do you feel about the lack of disciplinary issues this summer, and what does that say about the years you're going to see?
Well, I think it's a daily, continual education for your players, and you know, I think it goes back to recruiting and part of the evaluation process and taking the right guys. Number one, then number two, doing a good job as far as your structure is concerned on your campus. To guys understand there's going to be consequences, and they understand to stay within the lines of what we need to do and how they're going to act and represent the University of Florida. And you know, I always tell players, and they're going to make mistakes, they're going to make some poor choices and decisions, but help me help you. And if you're willing to work with me, I'm willing to work with anybody. I'll give you the shirt off my back to help you. And you know, it's through a growing process as a college student. And it's, you know, so, you know, our guys, in my opinion, have bought into that. They understand that we're here to help them. They don't buck at that very much, and I think they've done a nice job for the most part.
Kevin, and then Nick.
Coach, I know you saw some signs of improvement in the kicking game in the spring during the season. How vital is that to carry over in terms of you guys having success next season?
Well, we got to, you know, be able to, you know, get in the red zone and score points. And sometimes some of our teams in our league, they do a really nice job defending you in the red zone. So you got to convert those to field goals at times. So we've got to be able to kick the ball better and then flip the field defensively when we're punting the ball. You know, you look at the field position chart and how difficult it is to move the ball against a good defense, which I think we'll have. You know, be able to flip the field in the field position is huge. 2012 speaks for itself as far as some of the things we were able to do.
Did Austin cement anything in the spring, or do you still?
No, it's open, but I have a lot more confidence coming out of spring, and especially the spring game, as opposed to maybe going into spring.
Nick, go ahead, and then Jeff.
Coach, past couple of years, it seems really been a time possession game on offense. Is the offense moving faster? Are you concerned at all that the defense having rest times?
Well, I mean, you know, we'll have to manage the game, and I think every game will be different, you know, depending on the score and those sort of things and how we're playing defensively. But time of possession has never been related to winning games.
Will, talking about some position groups battling in camp now, in the secondary, you got maybe the most starting jobs up for grabs and some of the least experienced players. Is that safe to say that The secondary is an area of concern, one of your biggest areas of concern?
From an experience standpoint, yes. From a talent standpoint, no.
Okay.
And I think that I'd take talent over experience any day. I think you look at a combination of, obviously Vernon Hargrave's a very good player, played well for us last year. But, whether it's J.C. Jackson, Quincy Wilson, Duke Dawson, Jalen Tabor, Brian Poole, who played a lot for us at the nickel, but he's also going to start outside at corner some. And the combination at safety from a Marcus May to a Keanu Neal, Marcel Harris, Jabari Gorman, Nick Washington, of guys that I think can play winning football for us inside. We'll also rep Marcus at the nickel. He and Brian both. Vernon can go in there in emergency situations.
Is this a situation where it's likely that a starter will emerge at some of these positions, or that you're just probably going to play a lot of young guys?
Probably play some young guys and just sort of see if somebody goes and performs consistently well. And that's always been the challenge for a young player. It's the consistency in their performance daily, of always performing very well. And DeAndre Porter's another young player that I'm excited about in the secondary. But they normally, most young players, not all hit the wall at some point. Maybe week 2 of the season, maybe week 3. It's information overload as far as all of the stuff they have going on in their lives. And that's when it all reverts back to the most mature guy normally is the guy that's able to handle that the best. And I always feel like you're positioned further away from the ball, you can play earlier. It's always been my experience. So, we've had a bunch of guys come in and play as freshmen, as secondary players, and play winning football for us. So I have confidence in those guys' ability and their work ethic, and what I've been able to see this summer, I've been very pleased.
Antonio over to the left, and then Chris.
Well, I think it's the intangibles. And, he's been raised right. I saw his mom Saturday. She was here in town making sure he's doing right. But that's where a lot of it goes to. And I don't worry about him. Now I worry about other guys, that maybe aren't as mature, aren't as hungry, aren't as driven. But I've seen nothing in his approach in the all-season program to spring practice to the summer program, his work ethic, his buy-in to continue to strive to get better. I mean, he's a guy that he's going to be, if we start lifting at 10, he'll be in there at 9:30 stretching on his own. When weight's over, he's stretching. I mean, he's a pro at what he does, and that's what he understands, that part of it and what it takes to be successful, and I expect for him to have another good year.
Chris, and then David, and then Leonard.
Coach, you spoke about the wide receivers and DBs. What any other position groups you'd like to bring us and check out?
Yeah, all of them. But I think we got to continue to develop depth on both lines of scrimmage. I mean, that's again, I think the talent level's there. Rod Johnson's a guy I'm really excited about. We really liked him in fall camp last year. We knew he was going to have a procedure on his meniscus from high school. David Sharp's a young man that moves extremely well. Watching him, Andrew Mike's been a guy we've been pleased with. Antonio Riles continues to make progress as an inside player. So there's enough combination of guys that I think are talented enough. How quickly we need to get them ready. We need to get them ready, even if that means reducing our package to make sure that they're able to go in there and execute. Defensive line-wise, I hit on some of the inside guys, but Brian Cox has been a guy I've been pleased with. Can play defensive end for us. Alex McAllister's made some strides for us. He's up to 248, so he's as big as he's been since he's been here. We need to make sure he's able to maintain that in camp. Justice Reed, seeing his movement skills, Taven Bryan, Gerald Willis, all of those guys will get opportunities. Thomas Holly, Kerry Clark, all of those guys will get opportunities.
David over to the left, and then Leonard. David over there, back left.
Really talking about how this
Well, I think from a concern standpoint going in was it's a different entry point to the line of scrimmage from a quarterback coming from under as opposed to a back coming from a home position behind the quarterback. But our guys seem to really like the angle they hit it with, whether they're from a pistol look behind the quarterback or from a side of the quarterback on the right or left, depending on the run scheme is concerned. So from a standpoint of the run game, the runs are the same and block the same. Their entry angle is a little different, and those guys seem to really like what we did in the spring as far as those things were concerned. From the gun, that was a concern going in, but I thought Kelvin had a really good spring. I thought he looked good. You know, Brandon Powell's a freshman I'm excited about. Mac Brown's going into his senior year. Hunter Joyer can play multiple positions for us as far as being a running back in some short yardage situations, but also being a move tight end / fullback position we call the B. So, you know, multiple guys can help us. Getting Matt Jones back is going to be huge. Mark Hernan's a really good walk-on for us. It's been put on scholarship. That's a very deserving scholarship player. But that combination of guys and that competition is going to be key for us. Well, that's, you know, again, he's a guy that's got a really good natural running ability and skill, and we'll try and create that as much as possible.
Landon and Thomas.
Jared Davis is really a guy that broke out at the end of last year. Just how has his strong finish really carried into the offseason?
Jared is a really good football player. He was only a 2-star, so he wasn't allowed to be, but he turned out to be really good. He is a guy that's really explosive in a short area. He's got really good punch and on taking on a block and as far as finishing on tackles. But he's a very instinctive off-the-ball player. He also can play at the end of the line. He's a guy that can play both, so he gives you some variety in what he can do, but really smart, really conscientious in what he wants to do. He was an outstanding special teams player for early in the year and continued to grow into his position, and I think played extremely well, and he's primed for a really good year.
Thomas and then Mark up front. Thomas in the back right.
Well, you've mentioned a couple times that you wanted to get back to quarterbacks on the field early. How do you kind of see that happen? Is that a situation where you have that in a package maybe, or
Well, yeah, I think Thomas will decide that as we get through training camp. But, you know, no different than we did Jeff my first year. I think we put him in the, you know, second series of the second quarter. We had planned it going in. We knew what we were going to do, and we put him in the game. And I think you just got to get another guy ready, and that's what we plan on doing. And who that will be, I don't know, and what sort of package we'll have for them, I have no idea at this time.
And then in the past, you kind of wanted to establish a physical tone early in the year. How do you balance that with having a new offense and wanting to get full repetitions?
Well, I think we're further along offensively than I thought we would be going into training camp because of spring. I think our guys have a really good understanding. That's a credit to Kurt and our offensive staff, but also our players being very receptive to what we're trying to do. So I think, you know, I've scheduled the first 15 practices. Now we tweak, and, you know, Kurt may say I need a little more of this, or DJ may say I need a little more of that, or Coleman Hutzler, our special teams coordinator, may say I need a little more, you know, I need some more of this work. So we do tweak those schedules, but you know, I feel good about the physicality we've got planned in our first 15 days, and we got about a half scrimmage and one full scrimmage in those opportunities, and then we have an entire week before we start game week, and that's when I'll refocus with the staff on the things we need to work on going into that next week.
Mark over here to the left. Steve.
Following up on that, with the injuries that you suffered last year this time, are you backing down at all relative?
Well, I mean, we're changing a little bit practice time. We're going to go in the morning more than we had in the past, and you know, we usually incorporated a midday practice off of 2 a day, which I think we only have 3 or 4. But you know, the midday practice was hard from the standpoint of the heat and also weather, because sometimes you get lightning. So we're going to practice every morning, and then when we do have opportunities, per the rules, have a 2 a day practice, go later at night, and a little lighter than we had been doing before, and so it won't be as taxing for the players. You know, my biggest concern a lot is being able to, you know, have guys hydrated here in this heat, and sometimes I think going in the morning and eliminating the midday practice will help us. It won't be as taxing.
And then secondly, have you figured out Twitter yet?
I'm working. It's a work in progress. My 9-year-old and 12-year-old have helped me, though. You know what? It's really unfair, because when you get a message sent to you, it also goes to your text,
I do the same thing.
and then you respond to your text. Not that I violated any NCAA rules, because you're not allowed to text. Then it goes out. It's not a direct message. It's a message for everybody. And you learn the hard way in life sometimes.
I texted my phone number out that way.
Really?
Yeah, it didn't get
Did it help you any?
No. It was like some stupid radio station.
Yeah, okay. But, hey, you know, that's, you live and learn. It's the social media is interesting, I can tell you that. But it's a way that you've got to be able to, you know, understand how to do it, to be able to communicate with recruits, and that's a huge part of it.
Were you concerned at all that those were violations?
No, as long as there's nobody's name on it. So I told the staff, don't put anybody's name on anything. So if you do mess up, I taught Brad Lawing how to tweet.
Well, you did.
Yeah.
And he's done a better job than you?
Absolutely.
Scary.
hopefully this wasn't the one on the radio station you're talking about, Mark. Steve Russell.
Yeah. All right, on that note, Will, two things. You said you wanted 8 guys on the offensive line. Ideally, you have 7. Are you satisfied with the development of the other guys? And 2, in the offense, will the quarterback position be a run factor? And are you hesitant at all to run Jeff because of injury history?
Well, I think Jeff's got to be smart in the run game and getting down. And that's, Jeff's a competitive guy, so he's got to be smart about being competitive and understand the situations when he needs to get on the ground. And that's something we've talked to him about extensively. In the offensive line, in a perfect world, you'd like to have a center, a backup center that you feel very comfortable, a swing guard and a swing tackle. And really, most college football teams, that's what they have. Very rarely is anybody going to sit here and feel like they feel great about winning a championship with 10 offensive linemen. So we need to work to that combination first and then build from there. I think there's good enough players on our roster to have that.
Gene in the middle.
Well, you expressed a very strong belief a few years ago in your pro-style offense that you had. How difficult was it for you to switch it up, even though obviously last year the results weren't anywhere near what you wanted?
Well, I don't think it was really fair to judge us last year offensively with some obvious things that happened to us. But you go back and look at the numbers, and sometimes statistics can lie to you or they can tell you the truth. And I felt like Jeff's more comfortable in being in the shotgun, and that's the bottom line. And you go back and look, and you still can maintain the physicality you need to have and do that. Now, Steve Spurrier never got in the shotgun until 1996, and he won 4 SEC championships before he ever did it. So to sit there and say you can't play from under center at Florida is ridiculous too. All right, but to fit our roster, it was the best move for us in my opinion. And in looking for that type of coach that I felt like was to be good moving forward, Kurt Roper was the best guy for the job for us moving forward.
Secondly, David Sharp was a guy who had acquired a reputation in high school of really loving basketball, but not having anywhere near the same passion for football. What are you seeing from him in terms of passions that many of his coaches question his work ethic in football?
Well, he's a guy that's 6'6" and a half. He weighed 336 pounds when he reported, and he made 16 110s in the prescribed time for offensive linemen, which I've been other places, and that ain't even come close to making that sort of time. So I think his commitment level's been outstanding. He's worked extremely hard in the weight room. He's done everything we've asked for him in the weight room, in the classroom, and I've been very pleased at this point with his buy-in factor of playing football. And there's no question, athletically, he's extremely talented, he's extremely smart, and he's a guy that we're counting on to give us some help this year.
Time for a couple more questions. Jonathan?
Coach, you said how the offense this year will look completely different to the fans in the stands. What about for the players? How's that transition been like? Can you compare it to the transition between Charlie and Brent a couple years ago?
Well, I think it's the players have been very receptive. Part of the reason why I made a change, I felt like they had lost confidence in what we were doing. So you can continue to do the same things and get the same results. You need to make a change. Philosophically, we're not going to be different. We're going to be balanced in what we do. That was one of the things in talking to Kurt when I interviewed him was about the balance that he wants to have offensively. And you look at his numbers at Duke and Mississippi and all the places he's been. That's the way they've been. But schematically, drastically different from being from the gun. Creating more tempo, which we had a plan to do that last year. We never got to it after Jeff's injury. So, I think our players have been very receptive. I think our players had success against a pretty good defense in the spring, and that built a little confidence in what we're trying to do, and I think they're excited.
And you mentioned specifically Jeff being more comfortable with this offense, having experience in that from high school. Can you talk about how he's drawing that experience from a few years ago to now where he's able to play under Kurt?
Well, I think, again, when you get used to repping and doing something a lot and, from the gun, and again, I talked to Jason Garrett's a good friend of mine, the head coach of the Cowboys, and, he just talked about from the quarterback position the difference from being in the gun and coming from under center and the comfort level that a quarterback develops in one of those. And very rarely do you find a very accomplished guy that feels comfortable enough coming from under center and in the shotgun. And so, again, some of the things he said to me made a lot of sense. And I think that I saw that in the spring with Jeff. And his numbers spoke for themselves in 2012 that he was a much more comfortable quarterback from the gun in the run and the pass game.
Any final questions for Coach?
All right, yep. You got?
What areas have you improved in the past year?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, based on a record last year, I haven't. So that's the way you kind of look at it. You are what your record is. But, you know, just as far as total management of the organization, being able to be not just on the defensive side of the ball, but be more involved with our organization and, you know, offense, defense, special teams, you know, delegating more of what we need to do to be successful.
Thanks, guys.
All right.